Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. You're watching Indigo Tech Tutorials, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can add a version history and to track changes to your Ruby on Rails models using the very popular paper trail gem. So if you're not familiar, there's a gem called paper trail that is used by many large companies and tons of Rails developers. As you can see, it's used by almost 10,000 different people on GitHub, which that adds up to a lot when you think about the different organizations and everything. So paper trail is super helpful because it creates a version history for your models. So that means every time you go and update a model, it'll track the changes and it'll store a version. So if you ever need to revert to an older version or just see what sort of changes were made, you can easily do that with this gem. So I'm going to show you how you can add this to your Rails app, and let's get straight into it. So first of all, I'm going to go over to the console and I'm going to generate a brand new Ruby on Rails app. And I'm going to do this by typing the Rails new command. And I'm going to call my app test paper trail, and I'll just leave it at that. I'm also going to use Tailwind for the CSS framework because that's what I'm most comfortable with at the moment. And we could just press enter to generate this brand new Ruby on Rails app. So now that this app has finished generating, we can cd into the project. And I'm just going to scaffold a basic post model. So let's do railsg scaffold command. I'm going to call this the post model, and a post will have a title, a body, which is type text, and then we can do a username. Instead of doing a user model right now, we'll just do a username, which would be a string, and we can put whatever type of username we want to do here. So now I'm going to press enter to generate the scaffold, and we can also migrate the database with Rails DB migrate. And now that we have this post model set up, let's go ahead and open the code in your favorite text editor, which I'm going to use VS Code. And then the next thing I'm going to do is just set the root for our apps. Let's go over to the config routes.rb, and I'm going to uncomment this root at the bottom, which is going to the post index, which is already perfect for us. And lastly, let's go and start the server and check out our basic Rails app. So now that we've started it up, I'm using bin dev because I have Tailwind installed. But now that we have the server running, let's go in the browser and go over to localhost:3000, and you'll see that we have this simple setup for posts. So we would be able to create a post and everything, and that would work. But now I'm going to add in paper trail so that we can track the version history for these models. So let's go ahead and do that, and it's super easy to set up. So let's go back to the terminal, and I'm going to add the paper trail gem. So we can do that by running bundle add paper_trail. You could also just add the gem to your gem file, but this is the other way to add it. So now that we have the gem, we can run the install command, which is railsg papertrail:install. And as you can see, this is going to add a new migration file. And then we can go ahead and migrate the database to get that set up. And we now have this versions table in our app. So now we can go ahead and start the server again. And the way that we're going to hook up paper trail to our models is we have to go over to the app and the models folder, and let's go to the post model. And it's super simple. All you do is add one line to the post model that says has paper trail. And now automatically paper trail is going to track the changes on your post model. So let's go ahead and take a look at how this would work. So if we go back to our app and we go and create a new post, I'm going to do this. So I'm going to just do a simple post. This is a simple post in our Rails app. And the username, I'll just do Indigo. And boom, we can create the post. And you don't see anything on this page. This is just what's included by the scaffold. But if we go into the Rails console, so I'm going to go into the terminal and type railsc. And then we can check the post.last. And we can check the versions. So if you say post.last.versions, you'll see that we have one version. And we can count this. So we have one version. If I check the last version, you'll see that it is tracking the changes. Now for the create action, there wasn't a previous version, so it doesn't actually track anything. So we're gonna have to go and update the model to get a new version. So let's go back to the post page and let's click edit the post. I'll say hello world, this is my change, and I'm gonna update the post. And now if we go back to the console and do post.last.versions.count, you'll see we have two versions. And if we do post.last.versions.last, you'll see that we have all of this information. So we know that the event was an update, and we have the object, which this is the changed version. So I guess this is whatever the previous version was. Now, you'll notice that the object is just stored as a string, and that's because they need to store it in a database. So you might think, how can you use this data? And I thought that too, because it looks all crazy. Well, there is a method that you can use called .reify, which will convert this object into a actual post model that looks just like your regular post model, except for it's the older version of the post. So you can just run versions.last.reify, and you can run reify on any of the versions that you have, and it will convert your previous changes into a version of the post. Now, when you run this for the first time in a current latest version of Rails app, you're going to get this error, and I ran into this too. So it says, tried to load unspecified class, active support, time with zone. And I was so confused, like, why is this happening? I even put up an issue on the paper trail GitHub page, but it turns out this is super easy to fix. And if you copy this error, you can search it up online, and there's a bunch of Stack Overflow posts that are showing how to fix this. Okay, so I found the Stack Overflow where I had got my answer. Basically, someone had the similar issue as me, and this helpful person added the answer, which is to add the following line to your config application.rb. So this line is going to set active record, YAML, column permitted classes. So for whatever reason, this does solve the issue. So let's go ahead and do this. So if we go over to the config application.rb, we can drop in this line, which is going to set, of course, the YAML column permitted classes. And we have all of these different classes, including the time with zone. So for whatever reason, this is going to fix the issue. So if we go and restart the server, doing exit and then loading it back up, we can run the same exact command, post.last.versions.last.reify, and now we have a whole post model, and it looks just exactly the same as our current post model, but you'll notice that the title is different. So the title just says hello world, which is the previous version of the change. Because if we check the latest post.last, you'll see that I have this is my change section, but this version one doesn't. So boom, just like that, we are tracking our versions. And now I want to do a little bit of UI to help display the versions on the page and show you guys how you can do that inside of your app. All right, so let's get straight into this. So let's make sure that the server is still running, and we can go back, make sure that we are seeing this page. So this is the current state of our post. So now I'm gonna go into the code, and let's head over to the app, views, posts, and the show page. And then right underneath where we're rendering the post, which is just showing all of the content on the post model, I'm going to loop through the post.versions. So you can say post.versions each do version. And I'm also going to wrap this in a div so that I can organize these versions. So let's do flex call gap2 just to space them out. And then we can end off that div. And then inside of here, what we'll do is we'll add another div. I'll just do like a rounded kind of card. And let's give it some padding. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I want to print out the event. So what happened to the post? So what we'll do is we'll say post was, and then I'm going to print out version.event, because this event will either be create, update, and I think that's really the only events that you can have on a model. But as you can see, it prints it out. Post was create. Now they forgot the D because this is just the event. It's not like the past tense version of the word. So what I do is I'm going to add D directly after the embedded Ruby. So it looks kind of silly, but then it would say, you know, post was created, post was updated. I'm also going to add some margin at the bottom. So let's do MB4 just to push off these buttons a little bit. So now we'll see that it says post was created, post was updated. So now to look at the actual version history, what we could do is we could print out the columns. So what I could do is I could just go underneath here and say a version. And if you guys remember, we can do reify to create the version. We like reinitialize the post model as it was in that version. And then we can just print out stuff like the title. Now we are going to get an error because the first version didn't have a previous version. It didn't have any content from that version. So we also have to just check if version.event equals to update, because if it was equal to update, then we know that there was a previous version. But if it was the create action, then we wouldn't want to show any of this stuff because we wouldn't have it. So now I'm going to reload, and I guess we're still getting an error. So maybe we can use the safety operators too, just to avoid any error here. Oh wait, look, it's the same. Tried to load unspecified class. So you know what I'm guessing? We might have forgot to restart the Rails server. Remember when I fixed the issue a second ago? I think I just reloaded the Rails console and not the Rails server. So make sure to stop your server and restart it, and we should fix that error. So boom, there we go. The error is fixed. So you'll see that we have the event for created, then the post was updated. Now another thing is we're rendering these versions in order, which the first one was the created. But what I want to do is I want to render the latest changes, the latest versions first. So what I'll do is I'll go back to the code and I'm going to add a dot reverse before the dot each. So say post versions reverse, and this will show the latest versions first. So we can reload and we'll see that the post was updated, and this was the previous title. So it's as simple as if we just wanted to say like previous title was this, we could do that. But another way that we could do this is we could handle it like GitHub does, you know, where they have the changes. So how we could do that is we could add a class. So the previous version was like, let's just do a red class. So hello world. Now, I'm not going to get into the details of GitHub because they have like a way more complex algorithm. But if we were just to do it like this, we could see how this looks. So then we'll do a green one for the newest changes, which for right now, let's just do the @post.title. Let's see how that looks. So, and that'll be a plus. That's kind of how GitHub tracks the changes. Not the prettiest thing, but it's a good start just to kind of show you guys how this works. So it was hello world, now it's hello world, this is my change. Now another way that we could kind of only show this if there was a change is we can do an if statement. So say if version.reify.title is not equal to the post.title, which means there was a change. Otherwise, we're not going to show this at all. Now, this kind of brings me to my next point where once we get to multiple versions, we won't want to be comparing it with the current version. We want to be comparing it with the next version. So it would either be the next version or the current post model. So we're going to have to kind of do some logic there. So I might even leave this out for a second. But what I'll do is I'll copy the rest of this, and I'm going to do it on the body and also the username. And then we can get to scoping it to versions instead of just doing the current post model inside of here. So if we look at the changes, the post was updated. It was this. Now, obviously these weren't changes because we didn't change anything. So we can work on that in a second. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit the post again, just so we can have some more versions to work with. So I'm going to edit the post and I'll add some more stuff to the body. So this is more content. And you guys enjoy the videos. Update post, and boom, now we have a new change here. So what I want to do is now I want to try to check, was there changes between, I guess what we'd want to do is check the version and then the version before it. That's what we'd almost want to do. So if we come in here and we do version reify title, so this would be the current version. We'd almost want to switch this around. So this would be the plus, and then the previous version would be version.previous.reify.title. We're already getting an error here because what if there's not a previous version? So that's kind of what we're gonna have to check also. So if version.previous, you could almost wrap this all up. So if there was a previous version, then we should be good to go to do the reify. And then what we'll do is the change would be if version.previous.reify.title is not equal to the current version that we're looping on, reify title. So that means there was some sort of change. And we can end this off. Then what we'll do is in the red one, that would be whatever the previous version was. So that'll be version.previous.reify title. And the current version would just be the version.reify that title. So hopefully this is making sense. I know it's kind of confusing. And we are getting an error because it says, I guess the title, no, it looks like the version previous reify might have been nil. So I think what we're going to want to do is instead of checking if previous version, let's check if version.previous.reify. So if we weren't even able to create the previous model, if that is coming back as nil, which is possible, then we're not going to want to show these changes. So right away what happens is the latest version does have a previous version model, but the version before it does not, because the version before that was just the created event, which did not have any data stored. So I know it gets confusing, but hopefully we can figure this out. So we have this kind of sorted, the first section. So if the previous title is not equal to the current title, we are going to show those differences. Now let's kind of lock down the rest of the changes so that we only show the changes if there was a change. For example, the username did not change, so we don't have to show those changes there. So let's go ahead and handle the username first. So we'll say if version.reify, let's do version.previous.reify.username is not equal to the version.reify.username. Then that means that there was a change, and let's show those differences. So then for the negative again, we're going to do the version previous username, and then we'll do for the plus, that would be the current version. Just like that. So boom, now we're not showing that change because nothing changed. And let's do the same thing for the body, just to lock this down. So we'll check if version.previous.reify.body is not equal to the version.reify.body. And we are going to show the differences. And you'll notice I'm changing this, so instead of just showing the current post, we're going to show the version and the previous version. So hopefully you guys are noticing that. So the negative, we're showing that was the previous version previous reify body, and the additions were the version.reify.body. So boom, now we can see the only change was the title. So yeah, we didn't change the body, but if we go and edit, and let me change the body this time. Actually, you know what? I think we did change the body now that I think about it. Did we not? Anyways, let's do this again. So hello world, change the content again. Let's update post. And okay, that is weird. So now it's tracking the version. It's actually kind of weird. I might have got something wrong also. This is a simple post. Okay. Completely different body. Look, it's almost one version behind. So we're showing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 versions. Let me go and check the console and make sure that we're displaying all of these. If I say post.last.versions.count, we have 5 versions. So if we check the last version, reify, right, because I think the current version would just be whatever the content is on our posts, right? So I was almost thinking that we'd have a version for the current one, but we don't have that, of course, because we're only tracking the previous changes. So that's why it seems like it's one step behind, because it is. That's what version history means. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to also display the differences between the current model and the latest version that we have stored. And already what I want to do is I want to move this into some sort of helper method, because I don't want to have to duplicate any code. So what we could do is we could move this whole thing into a helper method. So if we could do something like show difference in version, and then we pass in 2 models. So we'll pass in the current version and the version.previous. Now we have to go and define this method. So let's go over to our app helpers and the application helper, and I'm going to define that method. show difference in versions. And we're going to have the current version and the previous version. And actually, since we're going to be passing in a post model, why don't we just pass in the model instead? Instead of passing in the version, we can do .reify first. And we can kind of work on this. And instead of checking this, if version.previous reify, let's not have that check here. Let's actually just do that check here. So before we render the version, we'll say if version.previous.reify. All right, now in the helper, we're going to, of course, have to change up what we're doing here because we're just kind of rendering everything in one place. What we could do instead is let's just render a partial. So I'm going to render, which I guess at this point, why did I not just render a partial? Because maybe this is more cool. We can render it from the helper method. Let's just do post/version changes, and then we'll pass in current post, which would be the version. We change this current post, previous post. We'll just pass this. So just like that. And then we'll go over to the post and let's create a partial underscore version changes.html.erb. And then we'll drop in our code now. And what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to change this from checking, instead of version.previous reify, let's go ahead and replace all the instances of this with, what was it? Previous post. And then for the current version.reify, we're going to replace all the instances of this with the current post, because that's what we're passing in. We're passing in current post, previous post. All right, so now that we have gone through all of that headache, hopefully this is working. So we are missing one thing, or we are having an issue. I think it's just a typo. So I meant to pass it current post. Or not current version, current post. There we go. So if we reload, it says missing partial post/version changes. So, oh, I forgot an S on the partial. It's supposed to be underscore version changes, or underscore version underscore changes.html.erb. So if we do this, we should be rendering the template. Now it's saying undefined local variable previous post. I think I know exactly what's happening. So if we go back to render partial, when you're rendering it with the partial keyword, you can't just pass in the locals like this. You have to pass it in a hash. So we have to say locals and then pass in curly brackets. So that's one trick there. And then if we reload, boom, it is now showing the same code. And we have these previous versions. Now what I want to do is I want to handle the version between like the current post and the latest version. So let's show that now. You know what? I'm also going to, I want to like move this, but I guess that's fine too. So what I'll do is I'll just copy this and I'll drop it at the top. And we could just say compared to current post. And then we'll do show difference in version. We'll pass in, I guess we'll just pass in at post. And then we'll pass in the most latest version. So say post.versions.last.reify if post.versions.last.reify. But I'm also going to do the safety operator just in case, let's say there was no version. So if we're showing this for like a brand new post, I don't want to do this. Actually, we should probably put this around the whole card instead, just so that we don't show the empty card in that case. So boom, let's reload. And there we go. This is what I was trying to do. So compared to the current post, this is what happened. We changed the body. Let's go ahead and try this again. So the title is Indigo Tech Tutorials does coding videos. And I'll do update. And as you can see, the change was the title. It might also be helpful to show what field is being changed. So right here, we can just say the field name. So say the title. And then down here, we'll do body. Here we'll do username. Oh, and we can also, because we know in this case that there was a change, because we've already checked that it is not equal, then we could just say has changed. The title has changed, body has changed. This is already super, super cool. Now, one thing I'm also noticing is the margin here. I'm going to move that. Yeah, I guess who cares? We don't need margin right now. But as you can see, the title has changed between the current version and the previous one. So that is pretty cool, right? This was the previous version. This was the current one. Now, the only thing that we're not handling was the difference between the first post or the first update, right? Which there should be some difference because the post was created between this version. There was a change. There was definitely a change here. So what we have to do is, that's tricky. How do we figure out this version? All right, let's test this again. Let me just test it with a brand new post model, just to make sure that our changes are being tracked properly. I'll just say brand new post. I'll leave this stuff empty. Let's press create post. And we have the event, post was created. Now if I edit it and say, hello, what's up? I update post. As you can see, there was a change. Now the weird thing, so there was this one version that just is, it was an update event, but it's just empty. But we do have the current changes. Oh, because this was just a version, and then this is comparing that version with another version. So actually all we have to do is just don't show this first update version. I know it's so confusing. So how do we do that? I think what we do is we just check this, if version.previousreify, before we even show the card. Let's just go with that. The same way that we're doing it up here. So if there wasn't a previous version to compare with, let's not even show it. And things are going to work. And right away we get some issues, so I'm gonna do a safety operator. There we go. Although we might want to show that event, like, you know, the post was created, but also I don't really think that that's important unless you guys care about that. Now, if you do care about that, we could just do another check. If version.event equals update and, oh, I guess this doesn't make sense. So we'd want to check if there's no reify version, so there's no previous version, and or no, that would almost be an unless there's not a previous version and a version event is equal to update, something like that. So if we reload, now it shows the post was created event, and it also shows our updates. So now everything should be working correctly. If I put my username, update the post, we get another annoying error. So it's saying undefined local variable. Oh, that's weird. Oh, because we forgot to update this part. So instead of version previous reify, it needs to be, of course, previous post. So I guess there was one little section that I forgot to update. But as you can see, we're tracking changes. So boom. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let's do one more final change just to make sure everything works. We're going to change all of them at once. This is a change. Yo. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was a lot, but this was my first time trying paper chop. I did try it right before I did the video, just so I wasn't completely going into this blind. But it's my first time really doing this, and I think this is super helpful. You can obviously make whatever UI you want. This could be super helpful to have in your app, and it makes tracking the versions very, very good. So I would totally use this in my own apps if I needed to track versions. But hope you guys enjoyed. Stay tuned for future videos, and have yourself a wonderful day.